Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to bring you my top 10 comic books of the week, and this is for the week of 3/6/19. That's right, guys. Now, this top 10 list is based off of my most anticipated show that airs every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's where I generated this list. Now, if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to that channel. Now, also, just to let you know, there will be spoilers in these discussions of these books. So if you guys haven't read your books first, please read those books because you might be spoiled. Alright, so without further ado, guys, let's get into my worst pick of the week. So, this book obviously was not on my most anticipated because I am bored with it, but this goes to Batman issue 66. Yeah, I am just not a fan of what Tom King is doing right now when it comes to Batman. This time around, we get to see the Question, obviously question Selina Kyle on the whole situation with Batman in here. The art style is kind of muddy for my taste. I don't know if it was done like that on purpose to kind of relive the past history when it comes to Selina and Batman and whatnot, but I just find myself just not caring, okay? I mean, Batman's stuck in this whole nightmare sequence, and it's been like 6 different issues, and I just feel like there's just no story progression when it comes to this. It's just random stories, and you know, just la 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 la, and I just dislike it at this time. So hopefully, once we get through this, you know, nightmare situation or what kind, it will pick up again. But again, ever since Catwoman has left the altar, basically the book has been just stagnant for me. Alright, so now we're going to move on to my surprise pick. And believe it or not, my surprise pick this week was actually The Walking Dead issue 189. This is probably one of the first times that The Walking Dead hasn't been on my, I guess, most anticipated list because it's just been at a stall. But this book actually surprised me because, you know, Robert Kirkman actually developed Eugene. We've actually got to see where Eugene, you know, started from and how much he's progressed over the years in the Walking Dead comic book. There was a time where he was much, you know, he was fearful of everything, and then in this issue, we get to see him and his little girlfriend surrounded by a ton of zombies, and he finds himself, you know, he gives the strength to himself and to his girlfriend to make his way out of a tough situation. And of course, he obviously, you know, thanks Rick Grimes for that whole situation. So that was a cool little character development moment here. And also in this story, we get to see this Commonwealth development. We get to see someone who wanted to take it over. His name is Mercer. He's the leader of the troops or the guard, and he was put in jail, and someone breaks him out, and they were obviously getting ready to start this revolt, and the townspeople went against him, and now Mercer is looking for Rick Grimes to get help and to help maybe take over this community. So, because everyone looks at Rick Grimes as this great leader, right? So the themes continue. You know, it's very similar themes, but again, the one thing that this book did do well was the character development aspect of it. So I can appreciate the issue for what it was. Wasn't the best book I've ever read, but it did surprise me that we gave such good character development to Eugene. Alright, so now we officially move on to the top 10. This again is based off of my top 10 anticipated books, and my number 10 this week, it goes to Female Furies issue 2. If this wasn't on my most anticipated list, this probably would be my worst pick, obviously. This time around, I just didn't like it. The first time around, I really did like this story because I liked the concept of it on how the women of Apocalypse, the Furies, did not get the respect needed to hang with the men on, on an Apocalypse. And then, so what they do is they wind up killing Steppenwolf's nephew or whatnot. But in this issue, it was kind of just more of the same. We wind up getting to see one of the Furies. I think her name is Ariel or something like that, and she's being constantly harassed by Willick, which is one of the men of Apocalypse, one of the warriors, and she winds up getting pregnant, and there's this whole dispute that's going on between Steppenwolf, and I find myself, by the time I got to the end of it, I just really wasn't interested, and I was just like, all right, well, how long are we gonna, dive into the women not being treated fairly? I can understand, like, the first issue of it, and then they killed his son, and then it became, well, how are they going to elude Steppenwolf on, not being blamed for killing his son or whatnot. But it's just, I don't know, already in this second issue, I find myself not really caring all that much, and I'll probably, honestly, not going to read it going forward. That's how quickly this second issue dropped for me. So, yeah, we'll not be reading it going forward. Definitely kind of a disappointment because I thought the first issue was a good setup, and then it's just more of the same thing. Alright, so moving forward now to number 9. And number 9 this week went to Black Order issue 5. I thought the conclusion to this story was pretty solid. We wind up seeing that obviously this was the Grand Master's plan to have our Black Order go on this mission to fulfill his game desires, and you get to witness that at the end of the issue. And this one obviously had to deal with Ebony Maw and how he really can't be trusted. We get to learn his treacherous ways, but he does it because he's willing to survive. And he obviously sits there and he talks about the Black Order on how these people are his family. He names all those descriptions at the end of the actual issue, which was kind of cool. And, it was a cool ending, I guess. I mean, it's a mini-series. What can you expect? The thing that really dropped this book down for me kind of was the artwork. The artwork was very weak in this final issue, where the previous issues, the artwork was really solid. I loved looking at the book. Black Swan and Proxima Midnight were absolutely gorgeous characters to look at. And Corvus Cleave, when you look at the details on his face, was awesome. And here it just was completely night and day compared to what the artwork was. So the artwork took me out of this story a lot. And then you get the people, they wind up turning into these weird reptilian creatures, which I thought was weird too. And so that took me out of the story as well. But when you look at the overall story, it got you to learn more about the Black Order, and that was its goal here. And it achieved it, and so I found myself more connected to these guys. Of course, we're getting to see them more in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we'll see how they impact the Marvel Universe going forward. Alright, so we move on now to my number 8. And my number 8 this week goes to Cosmic Ghost Rider Destroys Marvel History Issue 1. Now, this book on my most anticipated list was number 4, so it dropped quite a bit on here for me. Reason being because this was so dialogue heavy, I felt like not caring. It was ridiculous. And it's not like Cosmic Ghost Rider is really changing the universe here. What happens is he winds up going back in time, and he winds up running into his child, and he poses as the child's uncle, and he kind of sits there and he tells the boy, I'm a hero, and he shows him that his true self, that he's Cosmic Ghost Rider. And of course, again, he poses as his uncle, and he tells him all these stories about the Fantastic Four, and he kind of twists the stories around and things like that. And when he's telling the story, you're kind of like, it's like overkill. It tries to be too funny. Now, Donny Cates does not write this book, so that's why maybe it's not as solid as previous, you know, renditions of Cosmic Ghost Rider, but this was just too overdone, too wordy. But what I did like about it was the father-son aspect of it, of him telling his story, his adventures that he goes on, or that he does, or whatever it was, whatever it is that he does. It was a lot of fun in that way, but again, it just didn't need to be as dialogue heavy, and it will continue going forward to the next issue. I think it has to do with Spider-Man. So again, touching moment in ways, but it just didn't need to be so lengthy. It probably took me like 20 minutes to read this book. So, but I will read it going forward because it is a cute story, you know. If you are, you know, a father and you find yourself obviously trying to, you know, connect with your son, you know, you tell your son these stories and things like that. And that's what he's trying to do, you know, in that way. So that's how Cosmic Ghost Rider is. All right, so now we're moving on to number 7. And number 7 this week went to Paper Girls issue 26. And Paper Girls finished at number 9, most anticipated. Brian K. Vaughan's final story arc when it comes to Paper Girls. And in this issue, we wind up getting to see our girls being they're not reunited, they're actually spread apart in different timelines. So you get to see Erin, who actually is back, I think, in her timeline of like 1988. We get to see one girl in like a little bit more into the future. We wind up seeing Mackenzie way into the future. And we get to see, again, I think Tiffany, or again, they're all in different timelines. So one's in the 50s, one's in the 80s, one's in the way in the future. And so now they're all spread apart in the series. And so the thing is now is how are they going to get reunited? And we find out that one of our main characters by the name of Erin, she's been like cloned like multiple times. It's a very weird and confusing story, and if you've never read Paper Girls before, again, you're gonna have to read this in trade. I can't really go into too much depth when it comes to this series because you'll never understand what the heck I'm talking about. But this is a good read. It's a coming of age story. I recommend it if you're looking for something different to read. And so this was number 7. All right, so now we move forward to number 6. And number 6 this week, it goes to Young Justice. This is issue 3. Young Justice was actually number 10 on my most anticipated. So I didn't know what to expect from this. I don't know where, I guess, Brian Michael Bendis is going to go with the long term with this story. But I like where he's going with it because he's slowly kind of introducing you to these characters to see where they've been, what's going on with them. And this time around we get to learn about Superboy, and he has his reuniting with Kid Flash and whatnot, and we got to get to see what he's been up to. And we find out that in the past how he got to this gem world. And so we find out that you know, he was in Smallville and he was in high school, and he decided that, you know what, I'm not gonna break the rules anymore. So he winds up going to like Star Labs or whatever it is. He kind of like infiltrates the facility or whatnot, and he finds out they're doing experiments with all those gems, and he winds up getting, I guess, transported to Gem World, and he tries to fit in this world. He doesn't want to show them that he's Kryptonian or whatnot. So it made for an interesting story. And then what happens is you go to the current timeline and or to the other side of the place, and we wind up seeing Robin and everyone else being captured, and they're kind of losing their minds a little bit here, and you got to see why they were captured, and it's all because of Wonder Girl, which I thought was kind of cool. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous in this book. I love the way the characters look, and I love how they're fleshing out the characters a little bit. But once the characters are known, I want a little bit more of the story progression, okay? So we'll see what happens. And we still don't know who the hell Teen Lantern is. So we'll see what happens there. All right, moving on to our top 5 now. And my number 5 this week goes to Champions. This is issue 3. Now, the Champions was number 2 on my most anticipated this week, so this fell a little bit lower because the main reason is because we find out that we have this side story going on with Sam Alexander right now, and I want to know more about the deal that Miles made with Mephisto and how Ms. Marvel is going to find out. I care more about that stuff. I really don't care about Sam Alexander and the whole mutant thing that was going on in this issue that ties into, you know, X-Men and stuff like that. I kind of just didn't care about that. But we find out that Miles Morales, okay, wants to go back to the point of time when he saved Carmella and made that deal with Mephisto. And we find out that Miles realizes that the deal that he made replaced lives. So even though he saved Carmella and Viv and whatnot, the person that he physically saved wound up dying in the rubble, and he can't live with himself that way. He is just beside himself in tears when he finds out that he actually saved a person's life, and now in exchange for his friend's life, she is dead. So he is truly beside himself. I love the gut punch there. And then at the end, we find out that Pinpoint is the person that transferred Miles to that point in time. And Ms. Marvel meets him there, and she goes, "Tell me what's going on." So now Ms. Marvel is going to find out what has happened. So again, that aspect of the story, I love. The whole other part of the story, when it comes to the mutants and the what's it called, the protesting, all that stuff, I could care less about that. That's why this fell right at number 5 for me. So it had its good moments and it had its bad moments, or not so good moments. All right, so moving forward, we're going to go on to number 4. And this book was really good, but my other 3 books were even better. So I really had a tough time with my top 5. I mean, this was a really solid top 5 for me this week. And so my number 4 this week, it goes to Meet the Skrulls, issue 1. And this was my number 1 most anticipated book, but these other 3 books were so good. So when it comes to the Skrulls, you're like, well, what kind of people are they? Like, are they just integrated into the world to try to fit in, to try to be part of society? Or are they here to destroy the Earth, right? And so we find out that they're on this mission to try to get the Skrulls back to live on Earth again. And so we have this family that's, you know, purposely put together to do this, and they can't use their Skrull powers outside of the house. We find out that one of the Skrull children was born here on Earth, so she can't help to feel like she's more part of Earth than Skrull. It's hard for her to picture this mission, and so they feel that she's kind of a threat to this overall mission. And we get to see a little bit of their personalities, you know? And it is kind of comical in a way because they act as people on the outside, and then inside the house they talk like alien race hardcore, like take over the world shit. And they're like, "What do you do today, daughter?" And it's like, "I did this, and I made bonding with the Earth Woman." And it's just so funny to see them interacting and talking at the dinner table as Skrulls and not as normal humans. It was so comical that way, but you can feel the pressure that this Skrull family is going through to try to succeed at their mission for the Skrulls to come back and eventually take over Earth once again. I really like this book. It's very intriguing, very different, and I can't wait to see obviously where it goes from here. So really good. I definitely recommend Meet the Skrulls. Alright, so now we're moving on to the top 3, and my number 3 this week, and I was sure this was going to be my number 1 because this one was so good, but my number 3 this week was the Immortal Hulk issue 14. This was number 6 on the list because they didn't know where this was going to sway. What direction are they going to go, right? Is Betty going to be a one and done in this issue and then we don't see her again? But Betty Ross makes her appearance in this series, probably for the second time, but this is the first time where her story really shines. And we get to see her deal with the loss of her death. We get to see some interactions here between her and Tony Stark, which was kind of cool. You gotta love the artwork. It's so dark, but it's so good at the same time. And we get to see all the feelings and emotions that she's been dealing with. Bruce shows up at her door. There's people that obviously are interested in Bruce and they want to capture him. And Betty actually realizes that, okay? So she brings her into the house and whatnot. And they're talking in the house on things of what's been going on. And it's been a very long time since Bruce has talked to Betty. And it was a very intense story. And what happens in this issue is crazy. Betty winds up getting shot in the head. And you're like, damn! You know, and she doesn't have her Red She-Hulk powers. And you're like, well, that's it. She's done, right? No, that's not the case. Once she gets shot in the head, we get to see Bruce obviously changes into the Immortal Hulk because it happened right at nighttime. He goes to chase down the soldier that was shooting, and he was desperate to get the Immortal Hulk. And what happens is Doc Samson chases that soldier away, and we wind up seeing Doc say, okay, Hulk, we need to calm down. We need to fix this. We need to, you need to get with me. And at the same time, you wind up seeing Betty lying on the ground. Her head is just has a hole in it. There's blood all over the floor, but you see her eyes light up red. So that means that she's going to be, maybe, I'm thinking she's going to be Red She-Hulk again. So this is not the last of her. I don't think it is. I think she's going to become the Red She-Hulk. But at the end, when you see the hole in the head of Hulk, it's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's so crazy. The thing is huge. But it was such a good book. I love the emotion here that Betty was going through with the loss of her husband, or what she thought was the loss of her husband. Really great emotional book. I love the Immortal Hulk. All right, so moving forward now to our top 2 books. And my number 2 this week went to Avengers No Road Home, issue 4. And this was actually number 5 on my most anticipated list. And this was exactly the book that I wanted when this book was, when I heard about it, okay? This is the story of Nyx, the goddess of night and whatnot. And we get to see how she was the outcast of Olympus, and how, eventually the light and the dark got separated, and how she truly became this, I guess, night god, and how they put her to prison. You got to see how her kids were born, and that story was so awesome. I love seeing the origin, and I love, seeing, it was a great read. I feel bad for the character, obviously, but seeing her get outcasted was very sad. A very sad story. And you can't help but feel for her. It's not her fault why she was the reason she is. You can't help she's the goddess of night, or the god of night, or whatever it is, and the other gods has to do with the light side, or whatever it is. But what she went through and what her family went through is very, I can't stand it. I was like, oh my god, this is insane. And I don't blame her for getting revenge on the other gods, on Zeus and everybody else. It was really quite interesting. Such a good story. And then you get to see why, obviously, she was released from her prison because of the whole no surrender storyline when Earth was misplaced. I thought that was so good. And gives her a reason to come out again. So I'm really looking forward to the outcome of this story. And now it's going to continue here with, obviously, the Hulk doing battle against her. Great read, great origin story of all these characters. I can't wait for the next issue of this. Again, Al Ewing and Jim Zub. Jim Zub is an awesome Marvel writer. I feel that anything that he writes when it comes to a team book, he does phenomenal with. I love it. All right, so what was my number 1 book? Didn't expect it to be this good, guys. This goes to The Amazing Spider-Man issue 16.HU. It's obviously a tie-in to the whole Hunted storyline, and this book has to do with obviously a good tie-in with the Hunted and all that other stuff, and it has to do with Black Cat. This was number 3 on my most anticipated, but this is the freaking best Black Cat story I have read, and I couldn't tell you how long. It makes me love Felicia. This is the Felicia I know. And again, with this storyline, it's like if Parker's not with Mary Jane, this is why I want to be with Felicia, because she's such a badass. And ever since she got the revelation of Peter Parker exposing himself to her of his identity once again, she remembers all these thoughts, and she can't get all these thoughts out of her head with the relationship that she had with Peter. And it's just like, it's like she's in anger because of it. It infuriates her. And you get to see that, the pain that she witnesses, you know. And let me just tell you, the artwork in this book is absolutely gorgeous. It is so bright, it's so colorful, it's so vibrant. The flashback scenes in this book were so good. Hammerhead looked good in this book as well. But Felicia makes a deal with Hammerhead in this book, and to go ahead and capture Black Ant and Taskmaster, and to recapture the Owl and whatnot. And in exchange, he gives her a ton of paintings. But it's this big trap. It's this big setup. And we wind up seeing, obviously, Black Cat. She winds up being captured. But it ties into the whole thing so perfectly. Because we saw Billy, right? Connors, he gets captured. She runs into him. She tries to save him. That's when Black Ant and Taskmaster go to capture her. And there's this big battle. And then she sends this cool spider tracer out into the wild. And you know, as a flashback part of this book, oh my God, I can't talk. Hold on. You get to see why she has this spider tracer to begin with. And she sends it out to go get Spider-Man to go find her. And some of these memories that Black Cat has makes you feel that maybe she wanted Peter Parker to really propose to her at one point. So it was really quite interesting there. Great book. Great emotional aspect that's going through Felicia's mind. Great tie-in to the overall Hunted storyline. If there's something that ties into some kind of event, this book was written perfectly for it. I think Nick Spencer has done a phenomenal job with the Spider-Man series. He knows how to write the cast. He's brought this cast back. It makes you care for the cast, and it makes Spider-Man that much more of a formidable book against all other books in Marvel right now. It's an awesome read, and I can't wait to read this Hunted storyline. So, there you guys have it. There are the top 10 books of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Now it's your turn to put in the comments below what your top 10 books of the week. And guys, hopefully you enjoyed this book. I cannot talk. Oh my God. This series this week. And guys, as always, thank you so much. I'm going to shut up now. Give this video a thumbs up. Like it. Share it. Do whatever it is you want to do with it. And I'll see you guys on the next comic book review. Take care, fans. And I'll see you real soon. Bye.